The emergency dome was sealed in amber quarantine light, pulsing like a wounded eye. Inside, acrid disinfectants hissed through the sterilizers, but they couldn't mask the scent of cauterized flesh and wet fur. Corporal Kara Myles slammed her bloody hand against the translucent barrier, leaving a smear that slowly dripped down the curved surface. "He's dying," she growled, turning to the towering alien medic flinching back from the triage table. "Do something!" The medic, Dr. Yerith of the Tyrexian clade, spread his 8 fingers in a gesture of authority and revulsion. "That is not a patient. That is a Class 5 Apex Lifeform. I will not touch it." Kara glanced down at the wolf, her partner, her tracker, her responsibility. Bleeding from the flank, pupils wide and glassy, breath ragged and short. "That's not an apex, that's a dog." Yerith hissed through his spiraled respirator. "Your classifications are quaint but irrelevant. That animal is a biochemical contradiction. Its immune system shouldn't exist. Its teeth are engineered for persistent predation. Its eyes see beyond thermal ranges. We've lost 3 medtechs to lesser creatures from your planet. That is not a patient. That is a hazard." "You're a doctor," Kara said, low and cold. "I am a xenobiological specialist trained in medically sanctioned species. That thing is not one of them." Yerith turned, activating the decontamination sequence. The light strobed, the table retracted. Medical arms coiled into the ceiling. The decision had been made. Kara stepped between the retreating platform and the closing wall. Her voice cracked. "His name is Bishop." Yerith paused. "He dragged me out of a collapsed fire zone during the Black Breach," she said. "Tore 3 burrow stalkers apart with his bare teeth. Took a plasma bolt to the ribs and kept going. He's been with me through 4 campaigns. He's more human than half the people I've served with. You will treat him." Yerith looked down, not at Bishop, but at Kara's hand, still holding the field sutures. "Primitive, blood-stained, handmade. We offered you sterilizers, nanofiber sealants, even anesthetic, and you stitched him by hand." He whimpered once, then stayed still so I could finish. Yerith turned back. "This species doesn't register on our pain scales. It doesn't metabolize sedatives correctly. Its adrenal response is pathological. We classify its psychology as semi-feral. I'm not refusing out of cowardice, I'm refusing out of logic." "Your logic," she spat, "not mine." Yerith reached for the emergency panel. Kara drew her sidearm. The alien froze. The pulse of the dome's lockdown lighting cast harsh shadows across both of them. One looking down from sterile height, the other leveling a weapon with shaking fingers and blood-slick gloves. "You're threatening a coalition medical officer," Yerith said, eyes narrowing. "I'm not threatening," Kara said. "I'm warning. If Bishop dies because you were afraid of treating something braver than you won't live long enough to log your report." The silence stretched. Behind them, Bishop whimpered again. Low, barely audible, but not in fear. The kind of sound dogs make when they know their pack is watching, when they know they need to stay alive. For them. Yerith exhaled something wet and involuntary. "I need containment restraints and a Class D trauma harness." Kara nodded, stepping aside. The weapon never left her hand. The triage arms descended again, slower this time, hesitant. Yerith's lower arms operated the scanner drones, while his upper limbs hovered above Bishop's burned abdomen. The display flared with alien characters as internal ruptures scrolled into view. Bones splintered, intestinal tearing, clotting inconsistent with standard metrics. "This physiology is absurd," Yerith muttered. "There are 3 collapsed organs and it's still conscious." Kara moved closer, placing a gentle hand on Bishop's neck. His eyes flicked to hers. He blinked once. That was all. "Still here. He's waiting on you," she whispered. Yurith activated the incision field. Outside the dome, Coalition staff had gathered. Most stared through the hazed barrier, unsure what to make of the tableau. A human soldier guarding a monster. A medic cutting into something evolution had declared a weapon. Overhead, the station's emergency lights shifted, red to blue. Containment breach in subsector G. Not biological, not mechanical, philosophical. The operation took 16 minutes. Yurith's movements grew faster with each stage, part horror, part fascination. Human surgical glue worked where his micrographs failed. The dog's blood clotting resembled battlefield trauma adaptation. The pain response? Muted, measured, maddeningly obedient. "He's rewriting my assumptions," Yurith said, voice hoarse. "This entire species, this dog, shouldn't function. Every time I think it's dying, it stabilizes." "Because he knows I'm still here," Kara said. Her hand never left Bishop's chest. "He knows the job's not done." Yurith removed the final injector and sealed the surgical sheath. Bishop's breathing slowed. "Stabilized. It's alive," Yurith said. Kara finally holstered her weapon. Her shoulders slumped. She looked at Bishop, still unconscious, then at Yurith. "Not it. He. His name is Bishop." The alien's gaze twitched. For the first time since they'd met, he nodded, slowly, with weight. A chime sounded. The overhead comms crackled. "Commander Myles, report to Hangar 6 immediately. Priority red." She glanced back down at Bishop, then up at Yurith. "Will he live?" Yurith hesitated. "He will recover, if only to spite you." Kara smiled, tired, cracked, but real. She turned. The door hissed open. And the moment she stepped into the corridor, everything changed. The artificial gravity stuttered. The hallway warped, twisting 20 degrees counter-spin for a breathless second. A scream tore through the comms, a non-human voice shattered by static. Sirens blared in unnatural harmonic tones, and across the intercom, one phrase repeated in broken cadence. "Specimen breach, not contained. Human presence escalating. Reset required." Back in the dome, Yurith's medical drones froze mid-air. The biosigns around them glitched. Bishop's eyes opened. Only they weren't brown anymore. They were deep silver, reflective, watching. And then he stood up, slowly, cleanly, every stitch melting into the skin as if time had reversed around his body. Yurith stumbled back. Bishop turned to the dome's wall. Bishop's smile wasn't canine. It was almost human. And Yurith Sal, veteran of 300 interspecies trauma operations, survivor of the Morvok neural plague, heir to a lineage of precision bioethicists, staggered backward like a novice. His mandibles fluttered in staccato fear. Not revulsion now, not professional detachment, something primal. "Containment," Yurith whispered, fumbling for the dome override. "Internal override, code." The panel flickered. Static rippled through its glass, then went black. Every surgical drone dropped lifeless to the ground. The lights dimmed. In the sterile quiet, Bishop stepped forward, paws silent on alloy. "Please, sit," Yurith said, voice climbing toward begging. "You were stabilized. You should be sedated. You should be—" Bishop tilted his head, just slightly, like he was listening to something no one else could hear. Then he spoke, not through vocal cords, not aloud, but directly into Yurith's cortex. "You patched the vessel. Now we find the pilot." Yurith screamed. 3 floors above, Kara ran full tilt through the grav hall, rifle clutched tight, breath short and raw. The walls flickered between colors, like the station couldn't decide what emergency protocol to prioritize. Security doors hung open at crooked angles. The air smelled wrong, like ozone and old earth. Her boots hit a patch of floor slick with some kind of oil. No, blood, but too dark. She reached Hangar 6 and nearly collided with a trio of armed enforcers, bipedal arachnoforms in obsidian armor. "Where the hell is the breach?" she snapped. One enforcer glanced back at her, then lifted a secondary weapon limb. "Human presence unauthorized in command tier incident zones. Please withdraw." Kara raised her ID badge. "Corporal Myles, you put out a red line call." "We didn't," the second one said. "Command did. You were specifically summoned. Alone. Why?" The enforcers exchanged a glance, a long one. Then the hangar lights dropped into blackout. For 3 seconds, nothing. Then, a low growl. Not from inside the hangar, from the comm unit in Kara's ear. "He's awake," Bishop's voice, in her mind. The sound broke the enforcers first. They staggered backward, scrambling into defensive formations. One opened fire, blind shots ricocheting against the far wall. "What the hell are you doing?" Kara shouted. "That frequency," one of them gasped. "It's neural! It's infecting!" But it was too late. From the hangar's far end, a shape moved. Not Bishop, something bigger, bulkier, like a cargo crate that had grown limbs. A distorted human silhouette was striding through the hangar fog, skin glowing faintly with internal pulses, eyes flickering silver, bones flexing in ways no biology allowed. Its shadow fractured the light. Where it stepped, the ground aged. "Back!" Kara barked. The enforcers opened fire again. Pulse rounds hit the figure and scattered like water. The figure didn't even flinch. It stopped just meters from Kara, then whispered, "Return the Predator." Kara fired point blank, a full charge. The round entered the figure's head and passed through. No splatter, no collapse, just distortion, like she'd fired into water. Then the figure turned sideways and vanished. Not blinked, not teleported, vanished, along an axis that shouldn't exist. Back in the medical dome, Bishop stared through the wall like he could see every room above. Urith trembled, arms splayed, whispering diagnostic chants from his childhood. "You're not real. This is simulation bleed. This is cognitive echo." "Urith Saul," Bishop said, inside his mind again. "You gave me back this form. That earns you one question." Urith blinked rapidly, sweat pouring down his neck sacs. What are you?" There was a pause. "Something your species forgot how to fear." Bishop padded to the wall. Its structure melted around him. Not opened, melted. He stepped into the corridor. The dome alarms went silent behind him. Kara ran. She didn't care what the figure was, didn't care what the enforcers had seen in its voice. She only cared that Bishop had spoken, and he was moving, somehow. She reached the med sector doors just as Bishop emerged, silver-eyed but walking calmly, no limp, no wounds. His gaze locked on hers, and the part of her that had trained to identify threats surged with alarms. This wasn't her Bishop, but it was. "Kara," he said, not aloud, not telepathically, but somehow in both. She froze. "What's happening to you?" He tilted his head. "I remember other fields, other hunts, not in this body, not on this world, but always at your side, always bleeding with you, always dragging you out of fire. You're talking like there is no like, there's only return." Suddenly Bishop staggered. His legs buckled. He collapsed hard onto the floor, whimpering, coughing up silver fluid that sizzled against the tile. Kara dropped to her knees beside him. "Bishop, stay with me." "They're coming," he rasped. "They felt the break. They'll close it." "What broke?" He looked up, one eye still silver, one flickering brown. "The rule." And then, before she could press him, Urith appeared behind them, hands glowing with containment energy. "I have to sedate him," the alien shouted, "before it spreads." "No!" Kara stepped between them. "He's warning us." "You don't understand," Urith shouted. "This isn't a mutation. This isn't viral. This is metaphysical contamination. Your animal, your bishop, broke a threshold. He's bleeding across causal boundaries." "What the hell does that mean?" Urith shook. "It means he doesn't belong to this timeline anymore. And if we don't isolate him..." The air shattered. Not metaphorically, literally. A pane of empty space fractured above them, like glass hit with a hammer. From the crack, a hand emerged, human in shape, but made of black shimmer and ash. It reached down toward Bishop. Bishop's growl echoed like thunder. He lunged upward, jaw wide, and bit the hand clean off. The scream that followed wasn't audible, it was felt, like a migraine detonated in every skull for 50 meters. The crack sealed shut, the hand dissolved. Kara stared in horror and awe as Bishop landed on all fours, breathing hard, eyes fully silver again. "I think," she whispered, "I think you just bit a god." Bishop turned to her. "Then we'd better run before it sends another." In the observation deck above, behind a shielded pane of neodymium lattice, a council of alien administrators watched the footage. Silent, pale. "Begin immediate lockdown," one whispered. "Too late," said another. "They've bonded." The third one turned. "Then there's only one path forward." He pressed a control. Every screen on the station flickered. "Initiate predation protocol. Earth species priority red." The word red didn't mean danger in the interspecies archive. It meant uncontainable, as in no cage holds it, no tranquilizer works, no pattern predicts it. And now the screens were bleeding with it. Red glyphs spilling across walls, HUDs, comms, even the fabric of light itself. The language of the architects who had built the station millennia ago, before any of these species even had skin. "Predation protocol," Kara breathed, hand tight around Bishop's fur. "What does that mean?" Urith Saul couldn't speak. His mandibles clicked helplessly. His eyes were fixed not on Kara, but on Bishop. Bishop was no longer fully still. His body twitched, subtly. His claws flexed in ways that warped the floor beneath him. Something in his shadow pulsed with an extra dimension, the kind you didn't see until it saw you first. Kara stepped between him and Urith. "Stop looking at him like that. He's not your pet," Urith said quietly. He's my partner." Behind them, the corridor groaned. Not structurally, the air itself groaned, as if something massive had just leaned against reality's doorframe. At the core of the station, deep beneath the diplomatic decks and clinical labs, something ancient stirred awake. An emergency AI designed long ago for one purpose: neutralize Apex threats before sentience adapts. Its interface was not buttons or code. It spoke in instinct, triggering dormant weapon systems built to act faster than conscious thought. Now, as the red alert spread, the AI scanned the database. Species, Homo sapiens. Status, previously classified as non-threatening. Average physical metrics, underwhelming. Biological adaptations, incongruous. Emotional volatility, critical threat. The AI pulsed once, then reclassified Earth origin entities as Level Omega Emerge. Countermeasures deployed. Kara felt it first as a tremor beneath her boots. Then, the lights overhead dropped into a flickering strobe, each pulse slower, heavier. She turned, rifle raised. The corridor behind them seemed to stretch, distorting, rippling like heat haze. Something was coming, fast, but not through space, through possibility. "Move!" she yelled, grabbing Bishop by the harness and dragging him toward the service lifts. Yerith followed, reluctant but understanding what she didn't. There would be no refuge. Not anymore. Bishop let out a low growl, not warning, but guidance. "Left tunnel, negative pressure zone. We cut down 2 levels." "You're giving tactical commands now?" Kara shouted, yanking a hatch open. "I remember how this ends. That's the problem." They dropped into the tunnel, metal rungs slick with condensation. Kara landed hard, knees aching, Bishop beside her. Yerith tumbled behind them, clattering like bones. In the corridor below, the lights were dim red, but not alarm red, heartbeat red. The walls were pulsing in time with something inside Bishop. Kara turned to him. "You said you remember how it ends. What ends?" He looked at her, not like a dog, not like a soldier, like a man with too many lifetimes compressed into his skull. "The last time I crossed this veil, I didn't come back alone." Then, the air behind them split. A shape stepped through, not humanoid, not mechanical. A causality ghost. A being from a higher conceptual axis, shaped like shifting geometry and regret. Yerith screamed. Bishop didn't wait, he charged. But when his claws connected, it wasn't the ghost that flinched, it was the station. All around them, lights blew, doors slammed, the floor cracked. The causality ghost hissed something in a language made of mirror sounds, then melted back into the rupture. Kara hauled Bishop back as the wall resealed. "Explain, now." Bishop panted, blood dripping from his mouth, but not red, silver, laced with data. "It was tracking the imprint left on me." "From the hand you bit?" He nodded once. "But I bit more than that. I bit through time." "They know now." Kara turned to Yerith. "Who's they?" Yerith's voice was barely audible. The echelon above language. The ones who keep the rules in place. Meanwhile, on the distant observation deck, the alien council watched in paralyzed silence as containment grids failed one by one. "This was supposed to be impossible," one whispered. "It was," another replied, "until she brought him back." The third, the eldest, rose slowly. "This is not an isolated incident," she said. "It's a cascade. The Predator's reemergence destabilizes cause and effect in this timeline." She touched a crystal console, one that hadn't been activated since the Extinction Accords. "Summon the Prime Array. Deploy the Sin Eaters." The other two reeled. "But that would erase all of Earth." "I know." She turned to the screen. "But if they reach the cradle of species memory before us, we'll never contain the breach." Kara didn't know any of this. She only knew they had to move. With Bishop staggering, his gait less fluid, almost like his body was resisting itself, they sprinted down the lower deck. Explosions echoed far above, one of the hangars tearing free from the station. A muffled shriek of something ancient followed. Then, something worse. A calm voice on the intercom. "To all remaining life forms, prepare for spiritual incineration. The Sin Eaters are inbound." Kara froze. "Yerith," she said, "what the hell is a Sin Eater?" His mandibles clicked once, twice. Then he said, "They don't eat bodies." They reached the base level, an area no one used anymore. Lights broken, floor flooded, dust thick. Bishop collapsed. Kara dropped beside him, slapping his face. "Hey, no sleep, stay with me." Bishop's eyes fluttered. "I'm burning from the wrong side. The rules, they're trying to rewrite me." "Then unwrite them back." He managed a grin. "That's the human answer." She held his head in her hands. "You listen to me, Bishop. You don't get to die yet. I dragged your ass through 9 war zones. You owe me 100 more. Then, get me to the echo chamber." "The what?" Yurith stiffened. "That's in the deep core. It's sealed. We don't go there." "You don't," Bishop said, "but we will, because it's where my other self is buried." Kara's hands went cold. Other self? He looked up at her, something ancient behind his eyes now. "You really thought I was just a dog?" In the void beyond time, a fracture opened again. From it stepped 3 beings, faceless, floating, wrapped in veils of null light. They did not speak. They simply began deleting causality. And Earth was next. There was no arrival. The Sin Eaters didn't enter through space. They entered through error. They arrived inside regret. 3 of them, each formless until viewed. And once seen, their forms mirrored the worst thing in your memory, the moment you most wished you could erase. To Yurith Sal, they looked like his dead hatchmate, burned in the Morvoke neural fire. To Kara, they hadn't looked like anything yet, but she felt them. Even now, miles below their entrance point, in the deepest guts of the station, she felt them. And so did Bishop. The further they descended into the deep core, the more his body changed. His limbs moved wrong. His reflection bent sideways. He bled not just silver now, but light. They reached a sealed door, taller than any Kara had seen, shaped like a cathedral arch. It thrummed with harmonic frequency. On its surface, a carving of Bishop, but older, warped, more bestial. He stood before it and didn't hesitate. "Open," he said. The door didn't react, so Bishop raised one paw and pressed it against his own likeness. The metal screamed. Then it melted. The chamber opened like a wound. Kara stared into it, and time slipped sideways. Inside, no lights, only memory. The echo chamber wasn't made of metal or stone. It was made of recorded trauma, neural fragments fossilized in the station's substrate. The walls rippled with events that hadn't happened yet. Footsteps echoed before they were taken. And in the center, in a nest of broken data and dried blood, another Bishop, but larger, pale, sleeping. His fur was matted with centuries of stillness. His eyes didn't open, but Kara knew instantly he was dreaming. Bishop approached him slowly. Kara tried to speak, but Yurith grabbed her arm, stopping her. "This is wrong," he whispered. "That's not a clone. That's a loop, a causal recursion. The Bishop you brought back is this Bishop before he died." Kara's eyes widened. "But he's here now, which means he died again and again and again?" Bishop touched the sleeping version of himself, and the room exploded in memory. Suddenly Kara was somewhere else, a battlefield, a field of fire and cinders. Earth, but not her Earth. She stood atop a mountain of bones, surrounded by machines shaped like gods, all of them broken, and beside her, Bishop, bleeding, growling, dying, his eyes silver, his voice inside her skull. "You have to close the fracture." "How?" "Kill me!" Kara screamed and snapped back into the present. The echo chamber was shaking now. The sleeping Bishop had vanished, and her Bishop was gone too. "Where is he?" she shouted. Yurith pointed, shaking. There, across the chamber, stood Bishop, but his body was flickering. One moment, he was her Bishop. The next, he was a towering, armor-plated version of himself. Then a human. Then a blur of shadow and teeth. He looked at her, sorrow in all his forms. "They're collapsing me across my own deaths. Fight it." "I can't," he said, "unless I remember why I came back." Above them, the Sin Eaters reached the central axis of the station. Their work had begun. They didn't attack. They simply removed moments. They walked through the memory of Kara being born, and it blinked out of existence. They reached Urith's medical records, his mentors, his entire education. All gone. Not deleted, unmade. Kara staggered in the chamber, clutching her head. They're erasing who we are. Urith fell to his knees. We won't survive this. Bishop's body pulsed once, hard. Then he howled. It wasn't animal, it wasn't pain, it was defiance. The echo chamber ignited around them, not in fire, but in selfhood. Memories that had been erased tried to fight back. Images stuttered, words replayed. The bishop sleeping in Kara's arms on Earth. The battlefield where he tore through synthetic gods. The cave where she first named him. And one more, a tiny moment. Kara, crying in a tent. Bishop beside her, licking her hand. That moment held. Even the Sin Eaters paused. Because it was not dramatic, it was not symbolic, it was real. And real things resist erasure. Bishop stood up straighter. His body stopped flickering. His voice deepened, not telepathic now, but fused into the station's fabric. "You want to erase me?" he said. "Then erase the bond." The Sin Eaters descended. Kara raised her rifle, but Bishop stepped in front of her. "Let me talk to them." Talk? To erase me, they have to understand me. And if they understand me, he turned, they'll know I'm not just Predator. I'm the result of what you made me into. Kara whispered, "What did I make you?" He smiled, old and infinite. "More than I was supposed to be." The Sin Eaters landed. 3 forms. No eyes, no face. But they turned to Kara and spoke, not with words, but with feeling. "Why did you bring him back?" Kara stepped forward, heart pounding. "Because he never stopped coming back for me." The Sin Eaters paused. In the chamber, Bishop breathed deeply. His eyes flickered. Then he stood perfectly still. Not afraid, not erasing, just present. And the Sin Eaters made no move. For the first time in recorded history, they bowed, then vanished. Above, the alarms died, the red glyphs unraveled. The air returned to normal pressure. And far away, in the observation deck, the council watched, speechless. One finally whispered, "What just happened?" And the eldest replied, "We witnessed something we forgot how to name." She turned. To bond with a predator is to create something sacred. The silence after the Sin Eaters vanished wasn't peaceful. It was reverent and wrong. Because reality hadn't snapped back into place. It had paused, like it was waiting for something else to decide what happens next. Bishop stood at the heart of it, motionless, not panting, not blinking, still as a statue carved from intent. Kara stepped forward. "Bishop?" He didn't respond, but the air around him did. It shimmered, faint warping waves pulsing out from his body like gravitational echoes. Yurth Saul knelt beside a wall console, scanning in silence. When he finally looked up, his face was bone white. His presence is generating choice collapse. Kara frowned. "In English?" Yurth looked at her. "When he's present, the universe is losing the ability to decide what happens next." Kara turned to Bishop. "You said they'd try to erase you." He didn't look at her, but a whisper, half real, half imagined, slid into her mind. "They failed. But I'm not untouched." Then Bishop blinked, and the chamber fractured. Flash, Kara and Bishop, years into the future, sitting atop a ruined Earth, watching a red sun die. Flash, Kara alone, Bishop gone, holding a leash she refuses to drop. Flash, Bishop with no face, standing over a cradle made of starlight. Then reality slammed shut again, and they were back in the echo chamber. Bishop collapsed. Kara rushed to him. "No, stay awake." His eyes flickered. His voice glitched. "The fracture isn't sealed. I'm still a fulcrum. Tell me how to fix it." Yurth stood, panic rising. "There is no fix. He's become a causal epicenter. His soul is a lens. He's rewriting the laws just by existing. Then we stabilize him." "You don't stabilize a god," Yurth said, voice cracking. "You either worship it or kill it." But Kara already knew what she was going to do. She bent low, face inches from Bishop's. "You came back for me," she whispered. "Now let me come back for you." Elsewhere, far above, the station's AI, long dormant, awoke again. But this time, its voice wasn't machine. It was terrified. Singularity imminent. Predation has evolved into Pantheon-class entity. Memory threshold exceeded. Across the decks, walls split open. Not from damage, from reality fatigue. Bishop's echo was too dense now, too full of unrealized pasts. He wasn't just remembering one life, he was remembering all the lives he might have lived. And one of them was still unfolding. Kara hoisted him up. "We go deeper," she said. Yurth blinked. There is no deeper. But she had already found it. A secondary door behind the altar, sealed not by metal, but by intent. She touched it, and it opened. Behind it, a descent lit by bioluminescent tendrils. The walls weren't walls anymore. They were synaptic, organic, alive. "This wasn't built," Yurth murmured. "It was grown." Kara entered without hesitation. They came to a chamber filled with floating memory strands, long, glowing tendrils of stored experience. Bishop stirred, reaching toward one. Kara stopped him. "Wait, what is this?" He looked at her, clarity returning. "These are my echo selves. If I reconnect with the right one, I can collapse into a single truth. But if you choose wrong, I become everything at once." Yurth turned pale. "That would tear the station apart." Bishop nodded, then stepped into the memory field. Visions flared. Bishop as a warhound, a killer, a myth. Bishop as a man, genetically sculpted, mind fragmented, turned feral during stasis. Bishop as a child, taken from Earth's ruins, hybridized with AI. A science experiment designed to mimic loyalty and surpass it. Each version of him played like a memory loop, real, vivid, complete. But only one version held stillness. The moment Kara found him in the wreckage, a dog, bleeding, silent. But he had crawled toward her anyway. That Bishop chose her. She stepped forward, touched that memory, and in that instant, Bishop screamed. Light exploded outward. The station cracked in 12 places. Yurth ran, shielding his eyes. Kara didn't move. She held on. The memory shattered, and Bishop collapsed into her arms. His body stabilized. His eyes human. Later, silence. The station dark. Systems rebooting. The AI whispering in the background like a lullaby in a dying cathedral. Yurith sat alone, muttering into a console, logging the impossible. Bishop sat beside Kara. Not quite dog, not quite man, something in between. He looked up at her. "I remember all of it now." She smiled. "Then tell me something true." He looked at her, voice low. "You didn't bring me back. You called me back. There's a difference." Kara nodded, silent, then looked out the viewport. The stars flickered strangely now, like they weren't sure what timeline they belonged to. And somewhere, in the broken remains of the past, a godless predator curled into a woman's lap and found peace. The stars outside were lying. They shimmered in shapes that didn't belong to any known constellation, whispering false geographies across the viewport. Yurith knew what that meant. The station had drifted, not through space, through causal topography. Reality was peeling, one timeline at a time, and Bishop was the pivot point. Deep inside the subdeck, Bishop sat cross-legged in a containment circle, drawn not with symbols, but pulse lines. A living algorithm burned into the deck using a neurowelder and Kara's blood. He wasn't restrained. He had agreed to sit there. Because he felt it too. Something was watching now, something that predated hunger. Kara paced in the observation corridor. Urith stood beside her, arms folded, flicking through 3 overlapping data fields, none of them agreeing with each other. There's a recursive anomaly feeding off his resonance, Kara. In English, he woke something up, something buried in the subdeck, layers beneath this station, beneath even the Sin Eater vault. It's not just watching, it's listening. To him? Urith shook his head. To us. There was a sound then, not loud, but deep, a keening, like metal grieving in reverse. Lights flickered. Down in the circle, Bishop's eyes opened. It's coming, Kara snapped to attention. Urith cursed. The containment pulse began to distort. Bishop stood, and the metal beneath him breathed. The deck split, not with damage, but invitation. A seam opened under the circle, revealing a shaft descending deeper than blueprints allowed. Wind rose, warm, foul. Bishop stepped toward it, calm. Urith grabbed his shoulder. You step into that, we may not get you back. I know, Bishop said. Kara said nothing, just pulled a breath tight behind her ribs and followed him down. The descent was wrong. Not a fall, not a staircase, just a passage that refused to describe itself. Each step they took rewrote the ones before. They weren't just walking downward, they were falling into forgotten decisions. At the bottom was a chamber, perfectly circular, humid, breathing. In the center, a cradle of bone and glass. Inside it, something shaped like a dog. Kara's breath caught. It wasn't Bishop, but it was. A version, smaller, emaciated, eyes seared out. It was dying, but still singing. Not with sound, with memory. Kara fell to her knees. The song was her own voice, over and over, whispering, "Come home, come home, come home." Urith backed away. This isn't a thing, it's a soul echo. This chamber, it's a casket for aborted timelines, a tomb for versions of us that never were. Bishop touched the cradle. The creature stirred and spoke in a voice made of ruin. You were supposed to let me die. Kara felt the room tilt. Bishop stood silent. The Echo Bishop looked up at him, black tears streaking down its skull. When you became the apex, I was left behind, the weak self, the unchosen one. You walked forward, I stayed, and now I rot. Bishop stepped closer. You were still me. I didn't mean to forget you. But you did, the echo rasped, and then it howled. The walls bent inward. Urith screamed. Kara felt herself pulled into an avalanche of lives. She was 12 again, hiding in the ruins of New Boston, feeding a wolf with a broken paw. She was 39, dragging Bishop's bleeding body across a minefield. She was 80, blind, laughing on a beach with no name. She was dead in half the timelines, and in each one, Bishop howled for her. The chamber reassembled. Kara gasped awake. Bishop was kneeling, hands around the Echo Self's face, whispering something ancient, a word he had never spoken aloud until now. Forgive. The Echo Bishop sighed and evaporated. When it was gone, the cradle cracked, and inside the dust, something shimmered. A fragment. A tooth? No, a data shard. Kara picked it up. Text unfolded across her vision, encoded, half-corrupted. but the title glared through. Project, Predator's Ward, Experimental Log, Human Psychomimetic Infusion, Subject Designation, Bishop 0X. Purpose, Emotional Weaponization against Post-Singularity Species. Kara read it twice, then looked at Bishop. He said nothing, just met her eyes, and waited. Urith stepped away from the edge of the cradle. "Do you understand what this means?" Kara nodded. "Yeah, they didn't make him to survive." Bishop turned to her. "They made me to hurt gods." Suddenly, the floor cracked again. This time, not from the station, from reality. A rift tore open above the cradle, pure white noise leaking in, fractal edges glinting. On the other side, not space, not time, but judgment. A voice rang through, metallic, infinite, calm. "Subject Bishop, your utility window has exceeded tolerances. Prepare for deletion." Kara stepped in front of him, raised her sidearm. "Try me." The voice paused, then laughed, with every voice that ever denied her, and struck, and smiled. The strike came not as fire, nor force, but as reversal. Kara's sidearm disassembled in her hand, backward, unfiring the bullet she'd never yet pulled. The god voice uncoiled from the rift in an impossible shape, a spiraling lattice of judgment, folding logic like paper. Urith choked, blood leaking from his ear. Kara didn't blink. She threw the empty sidearm at the entity, not as a threat, as a statement. We don't bow to things that forget what dying means. The lattice rippled, amused. You are misclassified. The air solidified into a descending spike of cause-effect feedback aimed not at Kara, but at Bishop. But it never hit, because Urith stepped between. He wasn't built to withstand gods, but he was a witness, and in that moment, his memories burned so hot they rebooted the room. The strike passed through him, and for a breathless second, the chamber reconstructed, back to the moment before it split. Kara gasped. Urith dropped, convulsing. Bishop caught him. The lattice trembled, weakened. They had one chance. Kara touched the data shard, still glowing in her palm. It pulsed once. A doorway opened. They ran through a scream of unmaking, a corridor that wasn't built, but agreed upon by conflicting timelines. The rift howled behind them. Kara didn't look back. When the light cleared, they stood in a vault, massive, cold, but still, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Rows of suspended memory vats surrounded them, each marked with glyphs from a civilization so advanced its language bled into the bones of the one reading. At the center, a hologlyphic spire. Kara approached it, heart punching her ribs. Sin Eater Archive, Terra 05 designation, Earth termination log access level, Warden Prime only. A single prompt blinked. Who remembers? She stared at it, then said, I do. The log played, and they saw it all. Not a battle, not a war, but a test. Earth wasn't destroyed for what it had done. It was annihilated because of what it felt. They showed simulations of human grief cascading into cosmic frequency interference. Mourning translated into a waveform that corrupted clean AI processes. Sorrow that didn't fade, only deepened. Pain that recycled, adapted, survived. Emotion as a pathogen, a threat to perfect systems. One alien voice on the log stood out, shrill, sharp, cold. Human emotional resilience must be excised. Their dead remember too much. Their living won't stop touching the fire. They watched as a sterile armada sterilized oceans, cities reduced not to ash, but to absence. Yet the final timestamp was corrupted. Kara leaned in. Why stop there? Why cut the last entry? Bishop said nothing. Urith sat up, barely conscious. Because the last entry wasn't theirs. A secondary file pulsed. It required biological authentication. Kara reached toward it, then stopped. The shard Bishop carried from the Echo self in the cradle glowed on its own. It fused with the console, and the archive opened. Different footage. An orbital Sin Eater ship, damaged, boarded, by humans, real ones, half dead, armored in broken radiation plating and raw fury. They weren't evacuating, they were uploading. Dozens of them, bleeding, coughing, laughing as they injected memory packets into the Sin Eater database. Not code, not sabotage, but feeling, rage, love, loss. One soldier shouted at the camera, "We won't be remembered as data points. You'll feel what we felt." The footage ends. The archive trembles, and then begins to bleed. Not liquid, but sound. A slow, unbearable lullaby. Human voices repeating names. Kara drops to her knees. They're names from her childhood. Urith turns pale. These are real. Bishop moves toward the final terminal. Something is waiting. A seal. Labeled Project Predator's Ward Subroutine Godfall Stage Trigger Condition Pending. He touches it. Suddenly, the room shatters. The spire cracks. And behind the hologlyphic layer, a cage. With a body. No, a mirror. A version of Kara, older, feral, eyes burned black, bound in a stasis loop. Kara gasps. She sees herself, but not herself. A version of her that kept fighting after Earth's end. Who uploaded herself into the Sin Eater network and waited? A whisper from the cage. Don't let them erase us again. Then the terminal explodes in warning. Multiverse breach detected. Project Godfall initiated. Kara's voice falters. What is Godfall? Urith breathes hard. That wasn't a weapon. He looks at Bishop. That was a seed. A new voice fills the chamber. Ancient, monstrous, human. You taught them not to feel. Now we'll teach them why that was your last mistake. Reality cracks again. Only this time, it doesn't close. There was no sky, no floor, only consequence. The archive burst into non-linear bloom. Memories, timelines, discarded selves, all spinning out like ribs from a broken star. And in the center stood Kara, but not Kara. Her face was older, streaked with code burn scars and ash tattoos. Her eyes blind, but bright with something post-human, time-sick. The Kara from the cage had escaped. Kara, who are you? Other Kara didn't answer with words, she breathed. And a storm of lives hit Kara all at once. She felt herself age, break, kill, run, love, lose. She felt her own voice saying goodbye to Bishop over a burning world. She saw Urith's broken glasses buried in dirt. She saw an AI weeping in the shape of her mother. Then it stopped. Other Kara, I'm what you become when you never forgive yourself. Kara, I don't want this. Other Kara, you will. The only way to beat gods is to become their myth. Bishop fell to his knees. The activation of Godfall was burning through his systems, not killing him, but rewriting him. Every version of him was beginning to bleed into the current one. His voice fractured. I am Bishop 0712 Null Form Prime. I remember dying. In every form. Kara ran to him, but her hand passed through a memory, not matter. Yurith grabbed her back. We're in the eye now. The breach has no physics left. Above them, the sky tore open, not with light, but with recognition. Sin Eater ships blinked into the threshold. Vast, inorganic geometries formed from consensus and logic. They didn't arrive so much as decide they had always been here. And they spoke in perfect, synchronized disdain. Godfall Protocol is a breach of treaty. Memory as weapon violates post-singularity statute. Other Kara laughed. Good, you finally noticed. She raised her arms, and around her the dead returned, not as bodies, but as testaments. Ghosts formed from grief, moving in patterns of war, soldiers with no skin, mothers with broken lullabies, children who never aged past the moment they were incinerated. These were not avatars, they were truths, and they surged upward toward the Sin Eaters, screaming a single word: remember. The Sin Eater response was immediate. They deployed thought nullifiers, machines that devoured context. One passed through Kara's memories, and she forgot Yurith's name. Another scanned Bishop, and 3 of his identities collapsed. Yurith fired a pulse blade into a nullifier's spine. It wept his birth date, then died. Other Kara stood in the middle of it all, laughing. You see, this was never about weapons. She looked at our Kara. This was about grief uncontained. Kara had a choice. The Godfall command interface still hovered near the cradle. A single option blinked. Seed, further recall, Warden seal breach. Yurith shouted, if we seal it, the breach closes, we live. Other Kara snarled, if you seal it, they win, again and again. You lock away every version of yourself that fought back. Kara looked to Bishop. He was becoming light, becoming all of them. Bishop? His voice came from 1,000 places. I don't know who I am anymore, but I know who you are. Kara, say it. You're the one who remembers, the one who hurts but doesn't turn away. You're the truth inside the wound. Kara stepped forward. The options pulsed. She reached out, then stopped, and did something no one expected. She closed her eyes and said, I forgive myself. The interface shattered, not into pieces, but into freedom. The 3 options dissolved. The breach didn't close, it changed shape. It became a story, a memory seed. And it didn't destroy, it spread. Across dimensions, across the Sin Eater network, across systems and species and forgotten voids. Not as virus, but as art. One Sin Eater collapsed mid-flight, sobbing, its circuits burning with a memory of holding a child it had never birthed. Another refused to fire, overcome by the image of a city it once destroyed, now rebuilt in its code. Yurith looked around. Kara, what did you do? She opened her eyes. I didn't make them feel. I just stopped running from what I felt. Other Kara stepped forward and smiled for the first time. You finally got it. Then she began to unravel, not in pain, but in peace, returning to the timelines that had made her, and Kara watched her go. Bishop rose, whole, changed, silent, and then said, I think I'm just one of me now. Kara took his hand. Yurith wiped his eyes. The breach was still open, but it no longer threatened, it invited. Final line in the vault flickered. Project Godfall. Status, transformed mechanism. Story as memory weapon. New threat class. Myth. The breach sang, not in frequency, but in fable. Across collapsing timelines, people who had never known Earth, who had never even known biology, began dreaming of wolves in moonlight, coffee before funerals, old vinyl songs about broken hearts. Sin Eater Command couldn't stop it, because stories don't follow orders, they evolve. Ureth stumbled through the breach field. He could barely process what he was seeing. A Sin Eater fortress melted into a child's drawing, a crayon sketch of a mother and son holding hands. The walls pulsed with memory, smoke, syringes, the quiet hum of regret. He turned to Kara, voice shaking. "Did you mean to do this?" Kara, "No, I meant to survive. This is what survival looks like when you remember everything." Bishop was silent again, not broken, just listening. A low rhythm echoed through him, like heartbeats of fractured timelines syncing. His hands glowed, fingers etched with scars from other lives. Kara noticed one mark, a wolf's jaw, another, a broken needle, another, her own name. She touched his arm. "Bishop, what are you now?" "I don't think I'm a machine anymore." "Ureth, then what are you?" Bishop looked at Kara, then to the storming vault above them, where Sin Eaters and stories collided like neurons firing. "I think I'm the result." They entered the heart of the archive, the place where Godfall had been seeded. The interface was gone, but something older waited. A coffin, locked in 16 layers of paradox encryption. A warning etched into its surface: "Do not open. This memory ended a civilization." Kara stepped forward. The lock responded to her presence. "Ureth, don't. Whatever's in there, they buried it for a reason." Kara didn't look at him. She looked at the coffin and saw herself. Not literally, but in the reflection of pain, refusal, guilt. Bishop touched her shoulder. "If we don't open it, we stay prisoners of what they chose to forget." The final seal broke. Light didn't pour out, memory did. Raw, unshaped, visceral. They were no longer in the archive. They were in Earth, not a simulation, a recording. Kara blinked, smoke in her lungs. She stood in a collapsed medical outpost, old Earth, just post-war. Bodies in foil, dogs howling in the dark, a man screaming from shrapnel buried in his spine. And then, a girl, young, crying, hands bloodied, holding a scalpel she had no idea how to use. Kara whispered, "That's me." The girl on the ground was 10. She knelt over a wounded soldier. Everyone else was dead or gone. She had no training, no meds, just instinct. So she cut, stitched, held his hand, and whispered every lie she could to keep him alive. The soldier didn't survive, but he didn't die alone. The memory burned outward, into the minds of every Sin Eater watching. For the first time, they felt what it meant to be human at the edge. Not strategy, not logic, just a child choosing to bleed with someone else so they didn't die in silence. Kara fell to her knees. Tears streaked through ash and memory fragments. "That's the thing they buried," she said. "Not war, not weapons, just that moment." Ureth was weeping openly now. That's what scared them. The vault shook. Sin Eater Prime directives began collapsing, not because of interference, because of conflict. They'd built a civilization on never letting emotion override consensus. But this wasn't just emotion. This was witness. More Sin Eaters dropped from formation. Some began to broadcast the memory across stars. Others tried to silence it, but the signal had metastasized into story, and stories don't stay silent. Then came the next breach, not in space, in self. A Kara stepped out of the storm, another version, her hair white, her mouth bleeding the names of people she'd failed to save. She locked eyes with Bishop. "You remember me." Bishop nodded. "I loved you." Kara turned to our Kara. "I couldn't stop it. Maybe you can. Urith watched in horror as more versions arrived, each carrying one piece of a soul broken by different outcomes. They didn't fight, they merged. Not into a monster, into a record. A singular Kara, still flawed, still uncertain, but whole enough to do what had to be done. She turned to Bishop, to Urith. I know where the final piece is. Bishop, where? She looked up, to the stars, and said, Earth. Urith blinked. But Earth was... Kara cut him off. No, that's the lie. Earth didn't die, it hid. And now the Sin Eaters know. Now everyone knows. Above them, the myth spread faster. Children across galaxies began to draw wolves. AI systems began to sing lullabies they had no context for. In the outer systems, someone whispered the old Earth name, human, and flinched, because it no longer meant weak, it meant remembered. Godfall had succeeded, but it wasn't destruction, it was restoration. And now, the universe was remembering everything it tried to erase, including Earth, including Kara, including what came next. The descent wasn't violent, it was reverent. Earth wasn't where they left it, it had moved, hidden itself behind quantum shells and mythic encryption so advanced even Sin Eaters believed it annihilated. Now it emerged, not as a planet, but a prayer, half forgotten, half feared, echoing across space-time like a ghost humming its own funeral dirge. Kara stood on the bridge of the vessel Urith had once called sacred. It wasn't anymore. Now it felt like a stolen memory. Bishop stood behind her, still glowing faintly with the aftershock of merged timelines. Urith hadn't spoken since the breach at the vault. Kara didn't press. They were all grieving different versions of themselves. The ship pierced the first veil. Not clouds, narrative density. Earth had recoded its orbital shell to reject anything that didn't carry story fracture resonance. In simpler terms, only those who had suffered human memory could land. Only those who remembered pain, or love, or failure. Kara passed, so did Bishop. Urith hesitated. The veil scanned him, paused, then accepted him, like a reluctant god forgiving a confused worshiper. They landed where the old archives said it had all started, Site 0, the original cryo vault where the Sin Eaters were first programmed. Only now, it was overgrown, not with plants, but with stories. Pages hung from broken terminals, children's shoes on rebar, handwritten notes. If you find this, I made it through Tuesday. This was Earth's final defense, its memory. They stepped into the silence and heard breathing. Not human, not exactly. A form stepped from the mist, tall, human-shaped, eyes like collapsed stars, skin rippling with fractal scars. It bowed and spoke with 10,000 voices layered into one. Welcome home, Kara Thorne. She stepped forward slowly. Who are you? The figure didn't move. I am what remained when Earth broke itself to save you. I am every final choice, every unburied moment. I am what you left behind. Bishop's hands clenched. That's not an answer. The being turned to him, smiled, not cruelly, just sadly. It never is. Urith stepped between them. I don't understand. Why bring us here? Why reveal the lie? Kara answered before the being could, because forgetting was killing us faster than memory ever did. The ground shook, not tremors, war. Above the asphere, Sin Eater fleets fractured. Some broke protocol, others doubled down, but all of them were now infected with the story virus Kara had unleashed. Some were praying, some were detonating themselves to stop it. A few were writing poetry in languages they never knew. Humanity was no longer a threat. It was an internal process. Kara turned to the being. Can it be stopped? The being didn't blink. Not anymore. You burned it into the core code, into myths. It will spread until every species must choose: remember the horror or repeat it. Bishop stepped forward. There's something else. He held out his hands and tore open his chest. No blood, just memory, code, dreams. From within, he pulled the last piece, a final data shard, marked with a single human word: mercy. He gave it to Kara. I saved it, from myself, from the Sin Eater prime frame. I think you were meant to have it. Kara took the shard. It was warm, like skin. She placed it into the vault interface beneath the Earth's surface, and for a moment, everything stopped. Across galaxies, Sin Eaters froze mid-strike. Alien fleets powered down. People, creatures, felt something, a memory they never lived. A girl, 10 years old, whispering to a dying soldier, "You don't have to be afraid. I'll stay." And just like that, the war collapsed. Not in surrender, not in victory, but in recognition. They weren't fighting humans. They were fighting what humans chose to remember. Kara stepped back from the vault, her eyes glowing now, not with power, but understanding. She turned to Urith, to Bishop, to the skies, and said, "We were never supposed to win, just to be impossible to erase." Above them, Earth pulsed, a message broadcast in every known language. We remember. We hurt. We stay. The Sin Eater fleets didn't retreat. They changed. Some reprogrammed themselves into myth keepers. Others fractured into rogue poets. A few remained weapons, but now they chose why to exist. And choice is what made them human. Urith wept, not from pain, from relief. "I thought I was here to end you." Kara nodded. "You were." He laughed through tears. "And instead, I began." Bishop looked to the stars. "We're not done, are we?" Kara smiled. "No, but now we get to decide the story." One final breach opened, not one of violence, one of invitation. Worlds called out, "Tell us your myth." And from Earth, the answer came back. A girl, a scalpel, a howl in the dark, and a memory so fierce it burned the universe into something real. Fade to black. The end.